I'm really looking forward to what James has to say. The title of his talk is Tax Havens and the Multidimensional Knowledge of the Ruling Parasites. So James, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay at the back, everybody? Okay? Well, thanks for that welcome, first of all. I've actually just moved to Milton Keynes. I'm actually a local here. So first thing is, I'm going to welcome you to my hometown. I moved here about 8 months ago. We're just new here. I could recommend, for example, if you want to get some nice meals, to go to the Hub, if you know where that is. It's just beside the railway station. So, you know when people talk about Milton Keynes, they talk about the roundabouts and you're always getting lost and all this sort of thing. Well, actually, it was designed by a couple of hippies from California. And actually, that's very smart. They put a grid system down, and if you want to go somewhere, you sort of go up one sort of block and along. You're like in America, it's all designed like America, and it's a really great place. It's unbelievable. And the three center bits in the town center are Avebury Boulevard, Midsummer Boulevard, and Silbury Boulevard. And it's actually designed so that it actually is not true sort of north, south, east, west. It's actually just kinked a bit. And the reason for that is that midsummer, what happens is on the solstice, the 21st of June, the sun hits Midsummer Boulevard, and it goes right down the boulevard. And what do you think it hits? Well, you'd think it would hit sort of, like an Avebury or a Stone Circle or something. Well, this is Milton Keynes. It hits the train station. So, but it's great. These guys have really thought it out well, and it's really great. And of course, just near to here is Bletchley Park. You know where they did the Enigma code, just a mile down the road here. Well, so Alan Turing actually, he was the guy who in the war he really cracked the code. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking, what I'm going to show you today is a sort of cracking of codes. It's like mysteries. I'm going to unravel a mystery after a mystery. Okay? So I'm going to start with tax havens, and hopefully in the next sort of 10 minutes or so, 20 minutes, whatever, how long it takes me to get through this bit, you will be able to never pay tax again, legally. So that's worth coming for, isn't it? Now, one of the things which... how are we doing? Okay, tax havens. So one of the things with tax havens is that you've got to understand a bit of history about where they've come from. And one of the first mysteries, one of the first enigmas which I want to talk about is actually the law. Because the people who are in charge, Ian likes to call them the parasites, they actually have understood the law, not just recently, but for hundreds, thousands of years. And it goes back to Phoenician times. It goes back to like 1500 BC, when there were traders going across all over the world, actually. And these Phoenicians put in place a law system which we still use today. The Romans picked it up, and it's called Vatican canon law today, but it's also called maritime law. It's also called the law of the sea. It's called the law of international law or business law. So there's lots of different names, but essentially it's the same law structure. And there's one thing you've got to understand about tax havens if you want to do this, and that is there's something called a trust. You heard of this? Okay. They all use trusts. Now, you can use trusts. I'm going to talk about three things: how to avoid inheritance tax, how to avoid paying income tax, and how to, if you've got a company, you don't pay corporation tax. Okay? Each of those areas uses exactly the same law structure. But these guys are really clever. So the difference between the 99% of people who don't know this and the few who really do know it is they know how to use the law to their benefit. And they've got the money, they can hire the barristers out. The actual law structure of how it works is a bit of paper. If you pile them up A4, it's about this size, just for the tax structure. So what they do is they go in and they actually get very expensive barristers to find the loopholes, and then they put together what essentially is a trust fund, a trust, with a company organization attached to it. Anybody can do this. It's extremely simple, but, And what I want to put to you today is, instead of sort of thinking, oh, these ruling parasites, these people who, let's call them the 1%, or whatever the point, actually it's 0.0090 is 1%, actually is the truth. These people really know how to use the law, and the structure of the law is in a way, quite incredible that it goes back to Roman times. It goes back, this trust fund, this trust piece of document has been used for, literally 2,000 years at least, and probably beyond that. So, let's have a look. Let me just explain how the tax system works. So we've got half of all global trade and a third of all the world's wealth are in offshore accounts. Now, it's estimated at 32 trillion. Now, to get your head around what a trillion is, it's a million. We're going to use the American terminology today. So a billion is 1,000 million. So I'm going to be firing these things at you a little bit today. And a trillion is 32. This is 32 trillion, so it's a million, so it's 32 million, okay? It's a lot of money. It's a serious amount of money. For example, if you take this country, our GDP, what we all earn, what we all create in all our products and services is about 1,800 billion. So it's 1,800 billion, 1,800,000 million. That's what we earn in this country on a yearly basis. So if you kind of consider what size of that, what's going on there is a completely different alternative system in operation. And where it's come from is actually quite, in a sense, it's quite sensible. It's come from, really, if I was going to buy some coffee, for example, in London, and I want to ship it to Brazil or something, what you do is you create a tax haven. So that the idea is that you sit here on the phone, you talk to the guy in Kenya or something with the coffee beans, and you say, okay, that's 130 cents per pound. Okay, well, we'll do a deal on that. And then it goes, you ship it to the customer. The customer then pays you more, and you obviously are making money by doing it. But what you don't want is to have the coffee landing in this country, because then you're subject to tax. Okay? So the whole thing was set up like this. It was all about just normal trade, and you don't want to be taxed because the coffee is never going to land in England. So why should we be taxed for it? That's the logic of the people who originated the tax havens. So what's happened, though, over the years is that it's actually become personalized, so that every person who is smart enough to figure it out, and it includes, and so I'm always going to talk about the polarities today. There's always going to be good and there's always going to be bad, in the sense. And this is just a mechanism. But what is actually happening, in my view, is that this mechanism is being used and abused by the government against the people. Okay? You've always been able to do this, so why haven't you done it? Yeah? And what's happened recently is that with this Panama Papers and things, I'll come on to it in a moment, I'll explain it all. But what's happened recently is the government have actually basically said this whole scenario is going to be, what's the best way to put this? They're actually shafting everybody, basically, to put it politely. They're not. So many people are now starting to do this that if you've got a salary of 40,000 a year, you're actually silly you're stupid not to do this, because you can actually be saving 5,000 to 10,000 on your salary, and everybody's starting to do this. So what do? You put out little filters into the media, and then the people cry for the government to close it down. Yeah? And right now, this week, we've got Cameron, last Thursday, doing an anti-corruption summit. What? And the guy is basically going to try and close this down. So, so who uses it? Well, insurance companies. This is just the Cayman Islands, okay? This little bit here. There's 2 trillion in one little island called the Cayman Islands, just on that one alone. Obama came on the news, I don't know, a year or so ago, and he said, there's a house, Ugland House on the Cayman Islands, it's got 12,000 companies in it, this is outrageous. In fact, he's wrong, there's 20,000 in the company, in that building. But, you know, who uses it? You know, hedge funds. What's a hedge fund? Well, a hedge fund is actually a group of people in the City of London who are basically gamblers, high-powered gamblers. Always think, you know, these institutions, they're gambling. That's all they're doing. And so when I took my company to the stock market, for example, yeah, I had a software company. It was sort of dot-com era, do you remember it? About 2000, 1999, 2000. And I got to know the inner core of the City of London. And really, you know, when you actually get in, I was just a horse, you know, being positioned for the next horse race. And they're all gambling on me, you know, is this going to win or isn't going to win? And they don't really care in a sense, because they always know that out of every 10, one will win, and you'll get a Facebook. So they'll be like, you know, 90 billion they floated for, didn't they? So the owner of it got like 19 billion personally, Zuckerberg. So going back to hedge funds, so the city, okay, is a massive gambling den. So what they do is they gamble on something, and then they put the asset into the hedge fund, into the tax haven. In this particular case, it's Cayman. And there's literally trillions in assets, you know, going backwards and forwards every day in this sort of shadow banking world. It's quite incredible. So if you look at the British Virgin Islands, there's 500,000 companies there. I don't know if you've ever been there. I went by it once. It's a very, very small place. You know. Okay, so what happened with the Panama Papers? Well, this company, Mossack Fonseca, suddenly there was an investigation, and this group here, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, I mean, who are they? You know, apparently George Soros funds this. So you can see the sort of background. For 8 months, I mean, when you get a load of journalists come together for 8 months sifting through computer data of who's got offshore accounts, I mean, who's paying for that? You know? So, in my view, it's all an important step to get the people to clamour to shut these down. But they're so clever. What they do is they make sure they're okay. Okay, so they've got the legal thing completely stitched up. And what Cameron came out with this week was, oh, there's going to be a register, and everybody who's going to start a trust fund is now going to have to, you know, come clean on it. So they're all sorted out, all in the past. So if you want to do it now, you're going to, you know, the likelihood is you're going to register. Okay. So right. So I think there's a sort of change in tax laws going on, and I think that one of the things that riles people a lot is that they think that you know, this is a bad thing. It's taking away from our economy. Okay, so in other words, you know, there's this sort of strange impression that people have that somehow there's this pot of money, like on a kitchen table for a family, and you know, this goes to the schools, it goes to the, you know, the hospitals and so on. And we all think we're paying towards that, and it's our community and so on. It does not work like that. It never has worked like that. So you've got to shift your perception to realise we're in a debt-based society. You know, the usury money system can only result in debt. Nothing else can happen, and we use that every day. So these people are sort of offloading from that and offloading an alternative monetary system. And they're the ones who are actually they're just using the system, they're doing nothing illegally. And you can do it, and I'll show you how. So, I'm going to go through how you avoid corporation tax. Corporation tax means if you have a company, you make a profit, so at the end of the year, that profit is taxed by the government. Okay? So you actually pay, at the moment in the UK, roughly 20%. It used to be 30, so they reduced it. And basically, that just goes straight into the coffers. Now, there's a personal side. I want to cover the personal side where you can do income tax and so on. And I want to look at the inheritance tax as well. Okay, so I'll quickly just run through this. On the corporate, if you legally set up a tax haven, there was something called the double Irish, which we kind of joked about. They've just closed this down recently, and that's the thing that you've always got to get, the latest thing that's going on, because they're always trying to close down the loopholes. But the smart ones, they know how to avoid it. So what you do is you transfer your profits. So I've just made, say, 100,000 profits, and you transfer it, say, to Dublin. And then what happens is you've already set up a subsidiary. A subsidiary of a company is just another name. So my company name is Creative. So if I actually put 100,000 into Ireland, I put it under, say, Creatives Limited. It's actually multidimensional creative. So it's a subsidiary is a sort of different name. So I call it Multidimensional Creatives Holdings Limited, or something limited. But actually, it's still my company. It's just another bit of paper with a different name on it. It's no big deal. And then what you do is, because Ireland allows a subsidiary to be taxed in another jurisdiction, what you can do then is what they were all doing was transferring it from, say, Holdings Limited to another limited, and then taking it out to, say, the Cayman Islands or one of the tax havens. It's actually quite simple. It's very legal. So here's actually an example. Facebook transferred 1.4 billion. So that was their profits. Okay, they didn't want to get taxed on that profits of 20%. So they created Facebook Ireland Limited, and they transferred it, and then they transferred that to another company, subsidiary company they called Facebook Ireland Holdings Limited. So you got 1.4 billion going to one company, to two companies, and then out to the Cayman Islands. Okay, and it's legal. And it's just paper. They're not actually transferring anything. That's the thing. It's just literally going dunk, 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 and you're there. And so, if you've got a company, you're running it, you can do this. Big household names do this. Everybody you know does this. Okay? This is Tesco has got 4 Cayman subsidiaries. National Grid's got 6. The top 100 companies in the FTSE in the stock markets have got 800. Well, Cameron said just a couple of days ago, actually, it's 389 with a market capitalisation of 225 billion. It's probably a lot more. I think the 800, which I got previously from some researcher, is more the truth. And even the big banks, they've got subsidiaries. So they're actually not only holding your money as banks, they're actually doing the dance. Right, so how do you set up an offshore account? Well, it's very simple. You just go to somebody and you say, set it up. It costs somewhere between $1,600 to $2,600. But if you consider if you're earning $40K a year, and you're going to save $5,000-10,000 on it, you can have a holiday with your family on that. Send me a postcard if you ever do it. So you set up an offshore company trust, which takes about 3 days. So it could be a single trust, or it could be a company associated with a trust. There's all sorts of little games they play and nuances. And the guy you pay will just look at your circumstances and say, this is best for you. And then you pay an additional $500 to get a nominated director. Now what that means, when you have a trust, you don't want your name associated with that trust. So you get somebody to administer the trust for you. And these guys, there's one guy who's got thousands of companies, and he's just, Joe Blogs in Australia, whatever his name is. He just says, yeah, if you want that, it'll be, like a couple $100, and I'll do it for you. So the company, will actually do this. And then You have power of attorney of them. So if this guy, you don't like this guy, you can kick him off the trust. So you still control it, except your name is not associated with it. And the beneficiaries, the people who are going to benefit from this, it's up to you who those are. Right, so that's another way. You can bounce them across the different islands, where you might go into the Cayman and then go to the Cook Islands or something. It's all about losing the authorities or trying to look at what you're doing. So this is a typical example. The settler, say I'm going to set up a trust. I'm the settler. I establish the trust. I don't necessarily need to do this. It's optional with the holding company. But I do it. It makes it tighter. That holds the assets. And then what happens is everything goes back into the trust, and that's distributed to the beneficiaries. And really, it's just a sort of game. I think of it as a game. You just go 1, 2, 3, and there you go. And the reason that it's going to be closed down soon, in my view, well, it may not be closed down, but it'll be more difficult to do this, is because so many people have cottoned onto this, and the government want to close it down. They don't want the people to have this. They want the rich people, but it's, not the people. Right, inheritance tax. We all are going to pass over one day. So, the advice that a lot of people give is, well, spend it, give it away, and be careful how you give it away, actually, because if you give it away too much before you pass over, it'll still be taxed. And or you can do a little nuance, which is you pay the tax in advance through some sort of life insurance policy, which is tied to this magical trust document, always the trust document. Now, if you want to actually do it in a way where, you know how, I don't know, say the Queen or something got Buckingham Palace, and she's going to give this downstream to her children, and in a sense we all want to do that. We're going to, if we have an asset and we have children, we want to actually let them inherit it. But what happens is, of course, the first 325,000 is free, but then you pay tax at 40% on it. So to get rid of that tax situation, you create a trust again, right? You have to have a will, and in the will is a trust, and the beneficiaries are your children. But if you do it properly, all you're doing is you're changing the way the asset works. So your property is transferred to a limited company, and the shares are held in a discretionary trust. There's different types of trusts, okay? After 7 years, they have legally left your estate, which makes them free of tax, and your children can own the property. Now, this is brilliant because you can do this now, today. 2/3 of the UK doesn't even have a will. So, if you do that, the only thing that can go wrong, there's one thing that can go wrong in this, is if the child passes over in that 7-year period, okay? And this happened to one of the richest, most famous families in the UK. They own Chatsworth House, the Devonshires, and in the 50s, why do you think the third Bilderberg meeting was in Buxton in Derbyshire? Because what happened was the son died and the son died within the 7 years, and they couldn't get out of it. They were subject to 40% death duties. And even they couldn't get out with the power of their lawyers. And they sold the whole, they built the whole of Buxton and owned it, plus thousands of acres back to Chatsworth House. They were instrumental in bringing William of Orange in. These people were serious players in the empire. And even they couldn't get out of it in the end. But it's very rare that happens. The 7-year period is that, it's usually okay. All right, so that's how you avoid inheritance tax. So you basically have a family trust. It could be associated with a company if you do the discretionary trust, and it goes to whoever. And that's just a little diagram of how it works. So the company and the individual are associated with the trust. Now, this remuneration trust thing in terms of your income tax is a very clever little ploy as well. So anybody earning over 40,000 will see a significant saving if you do this. Even if you earn less than 40,000, you can still do it. It's probably still worth, paying somebody $1,000 or $2,000 to set this up for you. So they're currently being used in excess of 10,000 individuals and businesses in the UK. Okay, and you if you have quite a big sort of company and personal salary thing, you're talking about 20,000, 21,000 saving over £100,000 kind of turnover. So it's definitely worth looking at. Here's a real life example. So you pay $2,000 whatever dollars to a consultant. You set up an offshore remuneration trust in Belize. Belize is an offshore, like Cayman Islands, the Virgin Islands. It's yet another one of these things. You set up an offshore company to manage the trust. That just takes 2 days, 2-3 days. All they do is say, who are you? And basically, you can do that in Delaware, in the States, for example, or something like that. And Obama, of course, is going, these bad tax havens. Right in front of him is Delaware. On the other side of the country is Nevada. No tax. If you go gambling in Las Vegas, you don't pay tax. So you set up an offshore company to manage the trust. It's owned by yourself, and then the money goes to, and it's only paper money, so it goes to Belize, and then Belize is just one of the cheaper ones. And you just basically you may bounce it to, I don't know, Bermuda, and then back again. I mean, these are just it's just like it's just like bang, it's just a phone call, So with all this happening, how are they going to get the 99%? They're very uncomfortable now that people know about this and are starting to use it big time. So they've got to close it down. So how are they doing it? Well, we've heard about the summit this week. But actually, they're going to bring in legislation. And this is on, it's a bit fuzzy, this slide, I'm afraid, but that says 325,000, and you don't pay any tax on it. What they're suggesting is to change it to 81,000. So if you pass over, and you have a house that's worth 600,000 or something, the first 325,000 of that is tax-free. And the rest of it's at 40% tax. So right now, they're going to stuff everybody yet again by saying, right, that 325 tax-free is going to come down to 81 tax-free. So this is what happened this week with last Thursday. So if you notice, it wasn't just the Panama Papers that came out. Did you notice that the G20 conference in 2014 was all about tax havens? The 20 leaders of the richest countries in the world got together and their agenda was tax havens. Who told them to talk about that? So they want to set up a register of trusts. So it's a new tax register of trusts, so that if you're doing it now, then it's going to know who you are. And it's all about giving the law agencies the information. And this is what they did with the Panama Papers. They scared everybody, even the people with the accounts. And I think Soros was on very dodgy ground doing that, because these are very powerful people. And he's talking about 32 trillion business. But, he's done it. And so now what's happened is that people are, the Prime Minister of Iceland resigned, didn't he? Remember? But he wasn't doing anything wrong. He just had an offshore account, a legal offshore account. So what? But if you consider the core issue, and the core issue really is, do we all pay into this pot of money for hospitals and things, or don't we? Well, we don't, really, because money is created out of thin air. Really, people talk about this, but it's actually true. The central banks create this money. Obama created 24 trillion just recently and gave it to Wall Street. And I'll explain what you could do with that 24 million. That's just to pay the debt off. China, on the other hand, has 24 million, initially 15 trillion, and they've built 100 new cities since 2008. So when everybody was crashing in 2008, China went, okay, well, I'll just take this money and I'll create an infrastructure you won't believe, and I'll come on to this. It's unbelievable what they've done. And they're going to finish it in 2020. So, what's behind all this? I'm going to come on to the City of London now. And I know it a little bit because, as I said to you, I took my software company to the stock market. So I got to know the brokers, I got to know the insurance companies and the people who, have got the proper, there's different types of lawyers. These are the top lawyers. And there's of course, the finance companies and so on. So but I was just seeing a little bit of this organisation, really. At the end of the day, they've got to get you in front of this set of people who are going to bet on you. And they're the ones that actually literally call it the little black book. So the brokers, the underwriters they're called in the States, have got these little black books of high-powered investors. And so the idea is, if you see Dragon's Den, you do like 60 Dragon's Dens in 2 weeks, sit in front of these people. And these are not these little toy people, I'll give you 20,000. This is multi-million, billion stuff. But it's exactly the same process in a sense. So what's behind it? Now this is the really interesting thing. What is the crown? Well, automatically people think, oh, this is the Queen. This is royalty and blah blah blah. It's not. She's associated to it, but she doesn't control it. This is a ruthless corporation that I would say, I've looked at this for so long, that all this talk of New World Order has come in. It's been here for hundreds of years, and this is the group that actually controls it. So let's look at, this is the City of London. So first of all, I might have to stop this just briefly. This is a little video. So, just go back slightly. These are the tax havens associated with the City of London. So it's like a spider's web that goes out across the world. And the ones near to us are Guernsey, Jersey, Isle of Man. And there's the British Virgin Islands, Bermuda. You've seen all these, Gibraltar, Cayman Islands, and so on. They're all central, and they're all British overseas territories or non-sovereign jurisdictions, crown dependencies. And there is a difference. But essentially, this is the web, and it's much more extensive than that, because actually, when you get down to it, how they've created the law is that they've created it so that every single country in the world is now a corporation. So if you go to a company's house in the UK, you can find out, I know what it's called. He says, I can get confused. Is it England? Is it British Isles? I mean, where is it we live? Is it UK? Is it UK and Northern Ireland? Anyway, if you look at what they've done, they've actually taken every single country as the height of the British Empire through law, and we've fought 90-odd% and penetrated into over 90% of the planet, and we put in these little stings of the law, which makes even the states, every state is actually a corporation controlled by the crown, and this is not even the crown, okay? This is the wing of the crown that's controlling the money. So you've got a little video here. So it just gives you a flavour of what we're talking about. So, you know, we're in London, and a little red speck comes up in a moment. That is the City of London, 1 square mile in the centre of it. But what is this place? This place is not this country. This place is a country within a country. It has its own police force, it has its own law courts. You know, it can do what it wants. When legislation goes through Parliament, there's somebody who sits beside the Speaker called the Remembrancer, and he's been there centuries. Every single piece of legislation comes out. Yes, this is for the United Kingdom, except for the City of London. Except for the City of London. So every single piece of legislation comes out is avoiding these people. And they've got like huge amounts of money, obviously. So there's Canary Wharf. 100,000 people work there. In the City of London, this is the City of London, they've spent billions on these square mile. Where else are you seeing this infrastructure built in this country? Nowhere. And in the centre is the Bank of England, and that is a central bank, one of the first central banks in 1694. And William of Orange was brought in 1694 to give the control of the banking system to the real crown. I'll come on to this. On the board, I took this picture, and I made sure you couldn't see the faces because obviously embarrassing for people. But when I took those other pictures of this beautiful multi-billion, you know, infrastructure build, this is what's happening underneath Waterloo Bridge, which is on the boundary. You always know the boundaries when you go into the city because they are dragons. So when you walk past the dragon, you're going into the city. So these people are lining up because they've got no money. Yet they're doing 5 trillion a day in just one activity. Never mind the rest of it, I'll come on to it. So, what's really going on? Well, there's 3 cities actually, and each one has its own flag and its own constitution, its own laws, its own police force, and so on. And they run the crown. And we'll come on to the heart of who really is running it. So, the Crown Empire governs the world effectively, still, legally. And if you got the City of London, which is the financial centre, effectively, you've got Washington, D.C., which is the military-industrial complex. So the Americans think, oh, you know, we can do what we want. But actually, that Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, is 11 square miles, is not part of the United States of America, or America, as you should call it properly. It's actually a corporation. And when the British came back in 1812 and burnt down the White House, they changed the Constitution. And the Americans didn't even know this. And they're this Crown Empire is running it. We'll come on to the gods later, because this is the multidimensional bit. I'm going to set a little seed in your mind now. My mum always used to say, "Ye gods alive!" You know, today it's what the, you know. Right, so a little bit of very quick potted history of how has this come about, okay? The first chronology you can find written down on the pyramids, it goes back 35,000 years and talks about the gods. And then it talks about the gods coming down and breeding with humans. Then it talks about the humans. So that's the oldest chronology on the planet. And these gods are Ra, Zu, Ptah, Osiris, Set, Horus, and so on and so forth. And they change their names as they go through the empires to Mithra and this and that, but essentially they're the gods. You can trace back the Phoenician maritime traders to 1500 BC, and I think this was the core of maritime law when these guys actually started to do this structure. But what's interesting, people talk about Semites and anti-Semitism today. But actually, do you know that these Phoenicians had their own language, and from that language you get Hebrew. These were the originals. And they were based in Lebanon, Palestine, which Google Maps now calls Israel, and Syria. This is where the base of it was from. And they were great traders, these people. They used to wear purple. There's a little shell where you get this dye from, very, very rare, and you had to have thousands of these just to create, like one garment. So what happened in the city of London in AD 43 was the Romans came in, put a wall around it. We are the empire, the Holy Roman Empire, and they ran it for quite a few hundred years. And I'm going to fast forward to our beloved King John in 1207, because this is very, very key to understand what he did there. He actually, through a concession, he had a big ego fight with the Pope over some guy, Becket or something. And he basically gave all the rights to the Vatican, because the Vatican said, okay, we'll let you do what you want to do, but if you do not pay us the money you owe, we take your royalty, we take your lands, we take the souls of your people. And he couldn't pay. And from that point, everybody in this country is now legally part of this crown, this Vatican. And I'm not talking about the white Pope. I'm not talking about the person you see in the Catholic religion. I'm talking about the Vatican, the crown here. Okay, big difference. Housed very close to each other. So there's all these papal bulls come out over the years, and they're always, But what actually happened was the Great Fire of London. They decided this was the beginning of the new world order, the new empire, the new British Empire. And what actually happened was that, the person for whom benefit exists, again, it's the trust. So when you're born, your birth certificate goes into a trust unless you tell them in the first 7 years you want to be a free person. That's why your name is in capitals everywhere, because you are just a straw man. In terms of the courts, the lower courts, you're not a person. You're only a free person in the highest court, where they use common law, not admiralty law or all these other, whatever you want to call it. And that goes back to those times. So I just wanted to sort of highlight the 1694 date when William of Orange came over, because he actually turned everything over to the Vatican. And he had a military order called the Jesuits, and this is really kind of interesting to understand this, how these people have come about. Because over the years, through the Crusades, you had a number of people going out to the Crusades. You had the Knights Templars, you had the Teutonic Knights, which were the German royal families, you had the Hospitallers, and you had a Spanish group of knights. And what's been happening with this crown has been this part desire to get this new, well, the City of London is the New Jerusalem, but this Jerusalem thing sorted out. So, am I saying or something there? And basically, the core of it is this Holy See, this Curia, this Supreme Personality. Now, who that is, I actually don't know. I'm trying to go into this enigma, and this mystery for you here, and try to. It's like peeling off, and there's bits within bits within bits, and it's really, really complex, as you'd expect it to be, because you can't see the people who really run it. But I can give you a flavour today. So the City of London's the financial centre, and in the conspiracy world, like 10 years ago, all these people go, it's the Rothschilds, they run the world. Well, actually, they're just the bankers for the Vatican. The real people who run it, I think, go back to the royal bloodlines, these original God bloodlines as they came through. And okay, I've mentioned that already. So in the inner temple of the City of London, there's a sort of group of people, and They are going back to the Vatican, effectively, the crown. And the Order of the Garter, the Crown Corporations, the Council on Foreign Relations, all these sorts of things are kind of like entities which are controlled by the Crown. So this is a guy called Oxley who's done this. I don't necessarily agree with all this, but it was just quite a good summary. So at the top you've got this sort of Jesuit order, the Black Jesuit order. Then all these things like Skull and Bones, you've heard all these things. The Knights of Malta, they took over from the Knights Templars, allegedly. Supreme Council of Scottish Rites, the Freemasonry. Bilderbergers, all these, people have been talking about this lot for years. And it's true, they exist and they're real and they're very powerful, extremely powerful, but they're not the power base. So this is the Jesuits. So when you see the Pope, it's actually behind the Pope. There's ironically, today's Pope is a Jesuit, first time ever. But anyway, behind the Pope is this is the group here. But they're not at the top of the pyramid. So who's at the top of the pyramid? Who's really running it? This is the white horse insignia, which is what you get with Jesuits. Some of these are the royal bloodline, papal bloodlines, the Orsini, Breaspear, Fonesi, and so on, and they've been instrumental in the running of the Vatican for many years. This is something I did. Because I want to say, the Catholics aren't really doing this, okay? So I did this a long time ago. It was when Ratzinger had just resigned, do you remember? And there was no Pope. So I was just being a bit flippant, and I put it up on David Icke's website, actually. And basically, I'm saying that, you've got to believe in God if you want this job. So who's God? Is this guy in the Bible that... So some guy went through the whole Bible and worked out that God killed 2.47 million people directly. This is forgetting all the fires and floods. So guess how many people Satan killed? 10. And he's this, this is from the Bible, okay? This is what this guy does. He's a jealous, trivial, immoral, unforgiving tyrant and vindictive, bloodthirsty, ethnic cleanser. A misogynic, homophobic, racist, infant. Do you understand why people who are bowing down to this God, can behave? They think it's okay. And I said, of course, Ratzinger had Hitler Youth experience and knowledge of paedophile corrupt, a total necessity to be in the job because he was actually heading it up. And then hatred of women priests and women in general, frankly. So that was just a bit of fun there, but. Going back into the core, the real core, and I've been thinking about this for so long, and I may not be right with this, but what I feel is happening is that the Teutonic Knights, which are the German royal families, okay, they got a massive amount of control in the 1200s when they came back from the Crusades and worked with the Vatican. They've been instrumental behind everything, I think, because if you look at what is on this map, they are the bloodlines, royal bloodlines. And Switzerland, nobody bombs them. Who looks after the Vatican? The Swiss Guard. And where is 95% of the whole of the world's GDP controlled from? The Bank of International Settlements in Basel. Basel, up there, is controlling 95%. It's the head bank, is the headquarters of all the central banks. There's now 60 central banks across the world over the last 100 years.
And is it bordering on Germany?
Is it bordering on Germany?
Yeah, because it's right on the border.
Right, yeah. This is Geneva, Geneva, on the lake. You've got this side France, and you've got this side, I was thinking about geography, this side, this side is Germany, and it goes Austria, Germany. So the royal...
Basel is on the French border. It's Basel in France and Basel in...
Right. Yeah, I'll have to look that up, so I can't answer that. But it's... the point is, though, that these Teutonic Knights came up in the 1200s and created Switzerland. Now, everybody thinks the Knights Templars, who were killed off in 1312, lost all their money, and nobody knows where the money, everybody's trying to find the money. What if the same groups of people, which was the Teutonic Knights, these guys, also had a huge amount of money and created Switzerland? We know it's the financial centre of the world and has been for centuries. And these people are the people who run it. And in Basel, the head bank, this just, yeah, there it is. The Bank for International Settlements, in Basel, has 95% of the GDP. In other words, everything that every country earns through products or services is controlled by the central banks, and the central bank of central banks is in Switzerland. So what's going on there? It's just an interesting... Yeah, I'm putting information to you, but it's hard because I can't say, you know, who runs it, what's going on. What you could say is that in another part of Switzerland, you see all these... This is the parliament, the Swiss parliament. These are all the families, and maybe, you know, that's the real Knights of the Round Table. I don't know. You know, maybe they're the ones who are, you know, coming down, and then, yeah, when the G20 guys say we've got to look at tax havens, you know, ultimately there's somebody there saying that to these guys, and I don't know who it is. But it was if you go maybe back aside. So this guy Basel, he had a cathedral built after him in Germany in the 1200s. This was a massively powerful family, and these guys, you know, really what they respect is the bloodline and the power, the hierarchy. So, biologically, if you put the biggest bank in the world into a certain situation, then, you know, that's what's going to happen. So, in 1351, this Basel family received a confirmation of nobility from the Holy Roman Emperor. So, 1540, the Jesuits were created, and so there's this sort of dynamic power game going on all the time with these incredible, powerful ruling families and so on. That's kind of like, that's about as far as I can go. I can't tell you who it is, but it does come on to our royalty, though. So who is the Queen? You know, if the crown is this lot, you know, what's the Queen? And she heads up this Order of the Garter. You know, this is the most powerful people in the country. You know, Mrs. Kent, he heads up the Masons worldwide, and so on. And the way the structure works is that David Cameron has to bow down to these people. You know, the hierarchy is that these control Parliament. So you think she's got no power. On a local level she does. She controls the country. So what's the difference between the Queen and Obama, the American president? None. They do the same job. They do two things. They only have two roles in life. One is the chief commander of the armed forces, and they both are. We cannot go to war unless the Queen signs it off. Parliament can do what it wants. She can dissolve Parliament in 2 days, in two weeks. She has the power and right to do that. And this is the group of people underneath who keep the people in the place that we are at. So if you look since 1953, the establishment has to swear allegiance to the Queen before they get the job. Queen swears allegiance to the God, as she's anointed in the 1953 coronation. You actually saw it on television. She has a link, multidimensionally. Unless you can see this, you have no idea what she's doing. And in my lifetime, so over the last 60 years, we've had the Korean War, Mau Mau uprising, Cyprus, Suez, Brunei, so on and so on, Northern Ireland troubles, Cold War confrontations, Falklands War, so on, and the latest, Afghanistan war, Iraq war, and so on. She has to sign these off. But she's not the power. Okay? She's the power that keeps the people in line through the establishment, but she's a minor player as regarding the true bloodlines of the crown. And what's interesting in Switzerland is that there is actually a mansion there called, and it's the Saxe-Coburg clan. And if you know that the Windsors changed the name from Saxe-Coburg und Gotha in the First World War because they were fighting the Germans and thought it was not a very good idea to be called a German. So that's her position, and it just keeps going. So the establishment swears upwards to the Queen. The City of London is a powerhouse. Behind the City of London is the real crown. And then it's understanding how these people work with the gods, which is really, really, really important to understand. Because if you don't understand that bit, you understand nothing. The Crown of London, the City of London, pays into the coffers of this country in the region of 63 billion from their activities. And that just about covers what it costs to do our attack systems. I hate calling it defence. And so the City of London is a massive, powerful unit. And it's doing 5.3 trillion a day in foreign exchanges. Its main stock market capitalization is 6 trillion. Insurance companies, main markets, gold reserves, derivatives. I mean, the derivatives. Okay, take your example of the coffee, okay? We were buying the coffee in London, and we're shipping it to Brazil from somewhere. What happens is that the derivative is just an extension of that. So if I say to you, okay, I like the price of this coffee you've sold me this year, and I go to the farmer and I say, I'm going to set this price at 130 cents per pound, but I'll set it for the next 5 years. Okay, so it's a future. It's called futures. And I will guarantee I will pay you that over the next 5 years, Mr. Farmer. And I don't even care if you have a blight or you lose your crops. I'll still pay you it. So the farmer goes, yeah, great. So what's happening in 5 years' time, of course, you hope that it's probably better to do it with gold as an example, but the price will go up significantly and you'll make a big margin. So derivatives are all about future bets. That's what it's about. The world is awash with derivatives right now. And there's nothing in them. So to sum up with the City of London then, massive organisation, really controlling the finance. America's controlling the stock markets and the business systems in Wall Street and so on. And the NASDAQ are massive. And then if you go to China, you've got Hong Kong now, is bigger than America. They've actually taken over in terms of size and market capitalization of the companies going through the stock markets. So China is the big one right now, and I'll come back to this all the time if you want to know where we're going. Right, we get down to the meat of it, okay? Multi-dimensions. I see everything as consciousness. Okay, so there's nothing that isn't conscious or consciousness. So if you sort of expand yourself out into the world and the universes and so on, it's all consciousness, and it's all forms of light. And this book Manjir Samantha Lawton's written is talking about how black holes create that light. So black holes from very, very small to very, very big, size of smaller than atoms to bigger than universes. We've seen them in the center of every galaxy. They've been measured and seen. But just imagine everything is a sea of black holes. The Big Bang didn't happen. Everything's a sea of black holes and is breathing in and out of existence. And if you see a black hole, there's two polar jets coming out of it. What we see is just the light from those polar jets, which we can only see in our realm, which is under the speed of light. So it goes X-rays to gamma rays, and that's it. But it's a lot more than that. And what's in the multi-dimensions, how I define multi-dimensions is within that totality of consciousness, this totality of light, you're just looking at it from different angles. There's no speed of light per se. You're just looking at movements and frequencies. Okay, so let's just sort of expand ourselves a bit here and just try and have a bit of fun together. So, we. I'm going to have to hurry up. Right, let's go on. We've just found that there's 1 billion Earths in our galaxy. This is just very recent data. Not a million, a billion. We're talking about 1 billion rocky planets, approximately the size of the Earth, and so on. Cygnus is the latest one we've found. And this is Kepler 5.2b, which was found very recently. So, first of all, I just want to get a view of what you feel about multidimensional things. How many people here, for example, think that there is other life in the universe? Just put your hand up. Wow, I mean, we're talking about 95% of this room, okay? So, let's go a bit deeper. Who's seen some UFOs? Who's actually personally seen them? Right, there's about 10-15% of this room. Right, so we'll look at the situation of incarnation. Now, probably 85% of many indigenous tribes and so on, believe in this concept of the soul coming down into the body, and when you pass over, it goes back into wherever. So, past lives, we call it here. We've had many people talking about this over the years. So just give me a view here. Who believes they've had past lives, reincarnation? Wow. So we're talking about 80%, 90% of the room. Bit deeper, how many people have actually considered they've had a lot of past lives, like tens or thousands or something like that? Brilliant. There's probably about 10% of the room. So, if you take this sort of situation, do you think you've been a goody-goody in every life? So what do you think you're doing when you're coming down all the time? You come down, you live 70 years, you come down, and sometimes you're correct. And I'm going to try and give you just a view of those lessons. So, this is my crown chakra. It's absolutely wide open. And I had an experience. I was just touching this friend, and we were in a very deep meditative state. This is from a camera called a PIP camera from Harry Oldfield. And it shows how light goes through objects. So it's actually the interference of photons it's capturing. So I had this experience, and I just went into my heart, and I was going through my heart, and suddenly this amazing, amazing thing happened. So it's like my consciousness was moving forward, and suddenly I kind of broke through into a sort of another dimension, and what I saw was the human soul. And it looked like a liquid mirror. It looked like a piece of mercury that was kind of breathing or beating or something. And it had these lights around it. And what I found with the lights was that I knew these people I was actually with, and I was thinking, yeah, she's just like that. These lights are representing her emotions, her thoughts. And somewhere like octopus arms coming out and spiking you and this sort of thing. And Then I actually had a healing from one of the world's greatest healers. This is Michael O'Doherty. He actually healed Michael Flatley, the Lord of the Dance guy. You know, he lost the use of his legs for 2 years. And he uses something called plexus. Just watch this. There's a flash of light. I want to concentrate your mind on this flash of light. There. Okay? What I believe you're seeing there is the first part of understanding our human evolution, our true human evolution. So we've seen the Curlian photography stuff where you chop the leaf off here and you still see the light. That's an advance. This camera is an advance of that. He's taken Tesla technology in a coil and he has created this. So this is another view from, he was working on my crown chakra. Boom. Did you see that? Now what does that mean? It means everything. Okay? This is the body, the soul, and our geometries, and how we are at the moment. Our true evolution is through emotional photons, thoughts, coming into the cellular structure, and through protein and DNA, the light goes back into the soul, and we are growing our souls every lifetime. And what I believe you saw there with the first ever picture or in humanity of an emotion collapsing into light. When you get it, when you get the emotion and it collapses into light, you grow your soul. That's our lessons. So if you're incarnating as this really dark, evil magician, or you're incarnating as this really goody-goody, whatever, you are still learning your lessons in the polarities. And that's what we're doing on this planet. Okay, I'm going to zip into this. This is how the emotional light goes into our body through peptides, through amino acids, into the bloodstream. This is a little thing from What the Bleep. It's a bit old now. Into the cell. It docks on the cell. And now this bit is the cell itself. So what's happening is, this is Dr. Bruce Lipton's work. Okay, that's just a bit quick. I'll go back. It's really important you understand this. So this is the nucleus. So the emotional signal, which is going to dock on form into an amino acid or something, is going to dock on the edge of the cell. It's going to come down to the nucleus. And what actually happens is that the nucleus is made up of these things, which is amino acids. They are the proteins, and the amino acids, proteins are made of amino acids. So they split open. So once that signal comes in, that splits open, and in the center of it is DNA. Let's just cover those points. So there, okay? So the signal comes in, the protein shell comes off, it exposes the DNA, the gene. You then get RNA, which takes a photocopy of it, and it goes in to create a new cell or a new action. And then with Dr. Fritz Albert Popp's biophoton stuff, he's found that actually these chemical reactions can only happen if you have light, because there's 100,000 of these a second. Chemically, you can't go from here to here in the time period. So it has to be light, and I believe the emotions are the key. So this is actually key to understanding what we're doing. And it's also it goes key to understanding these hierarchical systems and these gods, okay? Because we are incarnating, and we are actually growing our soul each time we do it, whether we're the most evil person or the most beautiful, compassionate, loving person. So what happens when we grow up? Well, this is a little bit about me in terms of, between the ages of 6 and 11, I started to get an inferiority complex. I had low self-esteem, had problems with public speaking. competitive and complement groups. This was me. Absolutely to T. And you can take all, from one all the way through how you evolve with your emotional body. And if we look at this again, I'll put this through quickly. Once we start to understand emotions are developing us from a soul level, what starts to happen is as you collapse these emotions into light, you become more spiritual, become more open to the multi-dimensions. So that's Alex Gray, okay? He's got a picture there of the light bodies of a human above the speed of light. This is what you actually see. These are the chakras. And this is so important to understand because we're not just physical, we are the light bodies, and the soul is creating this light around us, not just the emotions, but this is what we carry with us lifetime after lifetime. So, I'll quickly skip through this because I don't have much time left. So, you then go into the realm of the gods. You've got realms of the fairies, you've got UFOs. So all these, and really, the past, present, and future are on top of each other. This is very advanced stuff, which I really need a long time to discuss, but I just want to give you a flavour of what's going on. So light civilizations are around us all the time. So all of you said you believe there's other life. Well, this is what it's about. You don't necessarily see it. These are very advanced beings that sit in other dimensions. Okay. But that is so important to understand. So the dark and light is always there in each of our lifetimes. The light. And we're in this massive contrick all the time, aren't we? So I want to put this to you, okay? Here's a situation where, you've got this guy Savile, he knows Heath, he's getting the Pope, he's infiltrating the most evil of, children into these worlds. And, we think he's doing good. I mean, why? We're not stupid. Humanity is not stupid. We know what is going on. We know that is going on. We know it. We've been there. And it's only by going into the extremities in each lifetime will you grow massively. The gods, after I left business, I went around the world and I went into understanding the gods. Every single country has the god, the royalty, the priest, the sacrifice, and then the people. Why is that? What is it they're after? So in the tax havens, there's one thing you've got to go away with, and that's trust and understanding them. In the multi-dimensions, the one thing you've got to go away with is understanding the soul. Because it's not just that we are incarnating and growing, we are actually a food source, an energy source for the gods. Not all the gods, just some bloody awful ones. If you can connect with that, you understand why all this is happening. And we're talking about when you pass over. I mean, what happens when you pass over? Your soul, if you do it really well, it takes you a week, and you actually completely take your body with you. This is called transfiguration. You can see it all, just Google it, across the world. Tibetans, all these people, just literally the body disintegrates. You're left with some hair or some nails. If you torture and hurt somebody while they're passing over, they're so confused they go into a dimension that they can be fed upon, literally. That's what's going on. And sex magic is just the most powerful thing. Sorry. Yeah, I'll have to hurry up now.
Thank your time. Thank your time.
Right, I'm going to just...
30 seconds, literally.
Yeah, I'm just going to finish then. So this is what's going on. The gods are there. Our cells have been fed. What's happening right now is that there's huge threats on the horizon. Okay, all the time there's threats. There's always threats. Every single 1,000 years as this is going on. But we're smart. We're smart. I won't go into that. If it all crashes, let it crash. Let the banks crash. Okay? Start up what China did. Sorry, I can't go into this now, I don't have time. But basically, China's just created a whole new infrastructure from nothing out of 15 birds. They created a shadow banking system. They said, this is what we're going to do. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this. So thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I didn't pace it very well, but you know, I've got a lot of stuff on my website, multidimensionalcreatives.com. You'll see a lot of this information if you want to get some more information from me. And I put together a little video which just literally is going to finish it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs and voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms and I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning, and the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words on the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, and whispered in the sound of silence.
James Gordon Graham. But thanks very much. What a great opener. You know, and it always amazes me that even though there's no collusion between the speakers, there are always threads that run through all the talks. And call it a hunch. And I think this weekend's going to be no different at all. Now,